All right, so you're thinking about picking up a Panasonic LUMIX S5IIX in 2025.
It's been out for a while, a couple years now.
And maybe you're wondering,
Yeah,
can it still compete with all the new cameras coming out?
right.
Well, we're diving deep into a review by,
Photographer Leo.
Leo from LensClear.
Mm-hmm.
He really put the S5IX to the test, so let's see what he discovered.
Yeah, and what I find really cool is that Leo, he's not just focusing on, all the tech specs. He's really all about how this camera performs in the real world.
Which is what matters, right?
Exactly.
Like, I don't need all the jargon. Just tell me,
Yeah.
does it take good pictures?
Right. Will it work for you? Right.
Yeah.
And Leo seems pretty impressed.
He does. He says it totally exceeded his expectations.
Yeah, and it's all thanks to this full-frame CMOS sensor it has.
Okay, now hold on. Full frame,
24.2
megapixels.
What does it even mean?
Okay, so think of it this way. It gives you so much more control when you're editing your photos later. Okay, I'm intrigued.
You know how sometimes you're shooting in, really difficult lighting?
Oh, yeah?
Like super bright or super dark?
For sure.
The S5IX, it's got this incredible dynamic range. It can capture details in both the highlights and the shadows. So even if the scene is tricky, you can usually bring back that detail in post-processing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And Leo, he actually has this great story about shooting in the mountains.
Oh, yeah, he was talking about
with a really bright sky.
And all those dark, shadowy rocks.
Yeah, exactly.
And he was able to get detail in both.
Exactly.
That's impressive.
And that's the magic of dynamic range. And the best part,
What's that?
it's not just for photos. This thing is a beast when it comes to video, too.
Oh, right. Leo calls it a hybrid hero or something.
A hybrid hero,
Yeah.
because it can do it all, right? A lot of cameras are either you're a stills camera or you're a video camera.
Yeah.
This one's I do both.
It does both really well, too. We're talking 6K video recording at 30 frames per second.
Yeah, now that's some seriously crisp footage.
Okay, 6K. That sounds very...
It is. It's 4 times the detail of regular HD. It's imagine watching a movie on a huge screen. That's the level of detail you're getting.
Wow. Leo actually shot a whole documentary in 6K ProRes.
Oh, wow. ProRes is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that professional level codec
Yeah.
that preserves all those details and makes it really easy to work with when you're editing.
Yeah, and he was saying that the compact size of the S5IX was really helpful, especially for getting those candid moments.
Right. It's like a little ninja warrior, tiny but mighty.
Okay, now let's talk autofocus.
Yeah.
Leo called it a game changer.
Yeah.
But I've heard some people say that Sony's autofocus is still better. What's your take on that?
Well, it's true. Sony has made a name for themselves with their autofocus systems.
Right.
But Panasonic, they've really stepped up their game with this S5IX. It's got this phase detection autofocus, which is so much better at tracking moving subjects than older systems.
Oh.
Yeah, so no more blurry shots of your,
dog running around or...
Exactly, your kid playing soccer.
Yeah. Or your kid. Exactly.
And Leo, he even had this story about shooting in a dimly lit restaurant. That's a nightmare scenario for autofocus, right?
You can imagine.
Super dark, and he's trying to take a picture, but the S5IX, it just locked onto his subject's face immediately. Saved the shot.
Well, wow. I was reading about that, too, and I was like...
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
It can handle those tough situations.
It can.
But what about, everyday use? Is it comfortable to hold? Easy to use?
Well, Leo was raving about the ergonomics. He said it's really comfortable to hold.
Okay.
The buttons are all right where you need them, and the screen flips out. So,
Oh, okay.
It's really nice, that fully articulating screen. It's all about making the experience enjoyable.
Yeah, right. It doesn't matter how fancy the camera is. If it's a pain to use, you're not going to want to
Exactly.
pick it up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of fancy features, let's talk lenses.
Leo had a lot to say about those.
He did, and for good reason.
Because the lens is so important.
Yeah, it's like having a Ferrari with bicycle tires.
Right. Exactly. You got to have the right glass to make the most of the camera.
So Leo recommended a few different lenses, and he's a big fan of that Panasonic LUMIX S5IIX 2470mm f2.8.
Oh, yeah, the workhorse. That's a good one.
Yeah, it's versatile.
Very versatile. You can shoot pretty much anything with that lens.
And then for those big wide shots, he mentioned the Panasonic LUMIX S5IIX 1635mm f4.
Oh, yeah, for landscapes, that's the one.
It's got that corner-to-corner sharpness.
Yeah, crucial for landscapes.
And then for portraits, he suggested 2 options. The Panasonic LUMIX S5IIX 50mm f1.4.
Okay, classic portrait lens. Beautiful bokeh.
Yeah, that creamy, blurred background.
And if you're all about sharpness, he recommends the Sigma 85mm 1.4 DGDN.
Oh, okay.
Razor sharp.
What about for those of us who are on a budget? Any good affordable options?
Leo suggested the Panasonic LUMIX S50mm f1.8. He was surprised by how sharp it was for the price.
That's great.
Yeah, really good value for money.
All right, so it sounds like there's a lens for pretty much everyone in the L-mount system.
There is. Panasonic has done a good job of building out that system.
Okay, but before we get too lost in lens land,
Yeah.
we've thrown around a lot of specs.
Yeah.
Dynamic range, megapixels, 6K video.
Right, let's bring it all together.
Yeah, break it down for us.
So the S5iX, we've got that 24.2 MP full-frame CMOS sensor, which is giving us amazing image quality.
Okay.
We've got the improved autofocus system using phase detection to keep everything nice and sharp, even when things are moving.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, we've got that glorious 6K 30p video recording.
And don't forget, fully articulating, touchscreen, an electronic viewfinder, image stabilization to keep those shots steady, and even weather sealing for those, crazy adventures.
Oh, yeah, it's ready for anything.
But how does it stack up against the competition? Like, we're talking Sony A7 for your Canon EOS R6 Mark II.
Right, the big leagues.
Yeah, tough competition. What does Leo say about that?
Well, he did a head-to-head comparison, and it's interesting. Sony and Canon, they're still kind of the kings of autofocus,
Right.
but Panasonic has really closed the gap with this S5iX. And when it comes to video, the S5iX might actually have the edge, especially with that 6K recording and those pro-level codecs.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it sounds like Panasonic is really giving the big guys a run for their money.
They are. They're not messing around.
So far, the S5iX is sounding pretty impressive, even in 2025.
It really is.
But how does it actually perform in real-world situations? We'll find out in part 2.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the LUMIX S5iX. We're picking up where we left off, exploring this camera through the eyes of photographer Leo.
Yeah, it's like we're right there with him on his shoots, learning all his tips and tricks.
Yeah.
So did you share any stories about situations where the S5iX really impressed him?
Oh, tons. He talked about shooting a really high contrast scene in the mountains. Imagine those dramatic landscapes with super bright skies and deep, dark shadows.
Yeah, that sounds like a challenge for any camera.
Right. It's easy to lose detail in those extremes.
Yeah.
But the S5iX, with its dynamic range, it was able to capture details in both the highlights and the shadows.
That's what he was saying.
Yeah.
He was able to recover details in post-processing that he never could have with his old camera.
That's the power of dynamic range.
Yeah.
And it's not just for landscapes either. He also used the S5iX for a documentary project.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and he was raving about the 6K ProRes footage.
Yeah, PROS is like the gold standard for video, right?
It is. Professional filmmakers love it because it's so high quality and easy to edit.
And he was saying that the compact size was a huge plus for documentary work.
Yeah.
It allowed him to be discreet and capture those real intimate moments.
Yeah, he loved that about it.
Okay, let's talk about lenses for a minute. Leo seemed to really emphasize how important it is to choose the right lens for the job.
He's absolutely right. A good lens can make all the difference.
Yeah.
It's like having a Ferrari with bicycle tires. You're not going to get the full experience.
I love that analogy.
It's true, though. So what lenses did Leo recommend for the S5iX?
Well, he's a big fan of that Panasonic LUMIX S5IIX 24-70mm f2.8.
Oh, yeah. Classic.
Yeah, he called it his workhorse lens.
It's a great all-around lens. You can shoot pretty much anything with it.
And then for those epic landscapes, he mentioned the Panasonic LUMIX S5IIX 16-35mm f4.
Oh, yeah. Wide-angle lens.
Wide angle.
Yeah, perfect for those sweeping vistas.
And he really emphasized that corner-to-corner sharpness.
Yeah, you don't want blurry edges in your landscapes.
Yeah.
Got to have that crisp detail from edge to edge.
So we've got versatility covered. We've got wide angle covered. What about portraits? Did he have any recommendations for those?
He did. He loves the Panasonic LUMIX S5IIX 50mm f1.4.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's known for creating that beautiful bokeh.
That creamy blurred background.
Exactly. It just makes your subject pop.
I love that look.
And if you're really into sharpness, he recommends the Sigma 85mm 1.4 DGDN.
Oh, okay.
But what if you're on a budget?
Yeah.
You don't want to spend a fortune on lenses. What are your options?
Yeah, are there any good ones that are more affordable?
Leo recommends the Panasonic LUMIX S50mm f1.8.
Okay.
It's a great little lens, especially for the price.
I like that.
You get a lot of bang for your buck.
It seems like Panasonic really wants to make full-frame photography accessible to everyone.
They do. They've done a great job of offering lenses at different price points, so there's
Yeah.
something for everyone.
Okay, let's shift gears and talk about video. Leah had a lot of great tips for unlocking the S5iX's video capabilities.
He did. He really knows his stuff.
He does. So what were some of his top tips?
Well, first of all, he talked about understanding all the recording settings. The S5iX has a lot of options.
It does. It can be a little overwhelming.
Right. But he stressed the importance of choosing the right codec for your needs. The camera offers everything from high-quality formats like Apple ProRes to more compressed options that are better for web use.
Right. So it just depends on what you're planning to do with the footage.
Exactly.
He also talked about using anamorphic lenses and shooting in vlog to achieve a certain look.
Yeah, now we're getting into the fun stuff.
Okay, so what are anamorphic lenses?
Think of it this way. Anamorphic lenses squeeze the image horizontally while you're shooting,
Okay.
and then you de-squeeze it in post-production to create a wider aspect ratio.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it gives your videos that cinematic widescreen look.
Like those classic films.
Exactly.
Oh, very cool.
And Vlog is a special recording mode that captures a wider range of tones.
Okay.
So you have more flexibility when you're color grading your footage later.
So it's all about having more control over the final look of your video.
Exactly. You can really get creative.
I like that.
Leo also talked about the importance of choosing the right frame rate.
Oh, yeah. Rep.
For a more cinematic look, he suggests shooting at 24 or 25 frames per second.
All right.
But for slow motion footage, you'll want to use higher frame rates, like 60 or 120 frames per second.
Oh, that's how they get those super smooth slow motion shots.
Exactly.
But as much as we love beautiful video, we can't forget about audio.
Oh, audio is so important.
Yeah, I've seen videos with amazing visuals, but terrible audio. And it just ruins the whole experience.
It does. While the S5iX's built-in microphones are decent, Leo recommends using external microphones for the best possible sound quality.
Yeah, good audio can really elevate a video.
Absolutely. It's worth investing in.
So it seems like Leo is a big fan of the S5iX's video capabilities.
He is. He thinks it's an amazing tool for filmmakers of all levels.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about specific features, but stepping back for a moment, what has really stood out to you about this camera?
I think its versatility is really impressive. It's not just a great stills camera or a great video camera. It excels at both.
Yeah, that's huge in today's world where everyone's creating content.
Right. You don't have to choose. You can do it all with this one camera.
Yeah.
And the build quality is also fantastic. It feels like a camera that's built to last.
Leo seemed really impressed by its durability.
He was. He really put it through its paces.
And you can't forget about the lenses.
Oh, yeah. The L-mount system is awesome.
There's so many great options to choose from.
Yeah, you can build a kit that perfectly suits your needs.
But how do you think the S5iX stacks up against the competition in 2025? We're talking Sony, Canon, all the big players. Can it still hold its own?
That's a great question. The camera market is constantly evolving.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up.
But I think the S5iX still has a lot to offer.
Yeah.
It strikes a nice balance between features, performance, and value.
And Leo did compare it to the Sony A7 IV and the Canon EOS R6 Mark II.
Yeah, he wanted to see how it measured up.
So what did he find?
Well, Sony and Canon are known for their autofocus systems,
Okay.
but Panasonic has closed the gap significantly with the S5iX. And when it comes to video, the S5iX might even be better, especially with that 6K recording.
Yeah.
It really depends on your priorities.
Right.
But the S5iX is definitely worth considering.
Especially if you want a camera that can do it all.
Exactly.
Okay, before we wrap up this part, I'm curious what you think about future-proofing. Do you think the S5iX will still be relevant in the years to come? Or will it become obsolete like so many other cameras?
That's a tough question. Technology moves so fast these days.
It does.
But I think the S5iX has a few things going for it.
Like what?
Well, first of all, that full-frame sensor. Full-frame sensors are known for their exceptional image quality.
Yeah.
And I think they'll be the standard for high-end cameras for a long time.
That makes sense.
And secondly, its hybrid capabilities. The lines between photography and videography are blurring.
Yeah, for sure.
So cameras that can do both well, like the S5iX, will be in high demand.
And third, the build quality.
Yes. Leo was really impressed with how well built this camera is.
He was, and it has that weather sealing too.
Yeah, it's ready for anything, so I think it will hold up well over time.
And lastly, Panasonic's commitment to innovation.
Yes. They're always pushing the boundaries. They're not afraid to try new things.
I like that.
Yeah, it's exciting to see what they'll come up with next.
So it seems like the S5iX is a pretty safe bet.
I think so. It's a solid camera that will serve you well for years to come.
Well, that's reassuring to hear.
Yeah.
As we conclude part 2 of our deep dive, I'm feeling very optimistic about the S5iX.
Me too. It's a great camera.
And in part 3, we'll delve even deeper into Leo's insights, uncover some hidden gems about this remarkable camera, and wrap up our deep dive with some final thoughts.
It's going to be good. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Panasonic LUMIX S5iX. We've covered a lot of ground from specs to real-world performance, all based on photographer Leo's experience.
It's been an adventure, hasn't it?
It has, and I think we've established that this camera is a contender. You know, it's holding its own here in 2025.
It is. And before we wrap up, let's make sure we've hit on all those key features, just to recap.
Yeah, a little recap, never hurt anyone. Back to basics.
All right, so first things first. That 24.2 MP full-frame CMOS sensor.
The heart and soul of the S5iX, right?
Yeah, exactly. It delivers beautiful image quality, whether you're shooting stills or video.
Yeah, and it gives you so much flexibility in post, too.
Definitely. And then there's that autofocus system. The S5iX uses phase detection, which is a game changer for moving subjects. Remember all those stories Leo shared?
Oh, yeah. He was so happy with it, especially in those, unpredictable moments.
Right. We'll only get one shot sometimes. And speaking of getting the shot, let's not forget that 6K video recording. That's where the S5iX really shines, I think.
Incredible detail. And you can even use pro codecs like Apple ProRes. For filmmakers and content creators, that's a huge deal.
Huge. But the S5iX isn't just a workhorse, it's also user-friendly. Leo was really happy with how comfortable it was to hold and how intuitive the controls are. And that articulating touchscreen, so handy.
Yeah, I gotta love a good flippy screen, right?
Yeah.
Especially for those awkward angles. So we've got versatility, we've got performance, and then there's the build quality. This thing is tough, weather-sealed, and ready for anything.
You could take it on an adventure, no problem.
Oh! Exactly. I'm really glad we did this deep dive, Hearing Leo's perspective has been so valuable.
Yeah, he knows his stuff, and you can tell he's passionate about this camera. It was fun to hear his insights on the lenses he uses, the settings he tweaks, and all those little tips and tricks he's picked up along the way.
So we've reached the end of our journey. What are your final thoughts? Is the Panasonic LUMIX S5IX still worth it in 2025?
Absolutely. This camera has aged really well. It's still a compelling option for photographers and filmmakers of all levels, especially, I think, if you want something that can handle both stills and video equally well. It's just a solid camera that will last you a long time.
I think so, too. All right, well, that wraps up our deep dive into the Panasonic LUMIX S5IX.
Thanks for joining us.
We hope you found it informative. And, hey, maybe you've even got some new ideas brewing for your next project.
Now get out there and shoot something awesome. We'll see you next time.